Hello, BookTube. I had a secret project at the Brattle Bookshop. Something that I'm planning for September. That I called the shop. I got Zach involved. I got a secret project assembled and put on hold for me. So I knew that I had to go into the shop and collect that secret project. It was a beautiful day today, crisp and clear. I believe it got down into the 60s Fahrenheit last night. So the morning was still just gorgeous. I don't know that we're going to have anything like oppressive heat this entire week. So it was a perfect morning. I settled the bean and I went to the Brattle to collect my secret project, turn on my heel, and leave. No, no, that didn't actually happen. No, I went to the Brattle, I collected my secret project, and then I also shopped. I browsed for books, and I got a pile of them. Not as big a pile as last time. Last time I went to the Brattle, I got a big, enormous pile of books, and then another enormous pile of books for a total of 150 pounds that I carried back here on my own. Instead of getting an Uber, I lost track of how many emails I got from you, from irate viewers of the channel saying, "What are you doing? Not getting an Uber? What are you thinking? Why didn't you do that?" And I don't have an answer for that. This time it was just a simple bag load of books. And they bounce all over the place in terms of what we'll talk about. I am not going to show you the secret project. The secret project will be revealed on the 1st of September, which is coming right up. Can you believe it's the 27th of August? But anyway, so let's just look at the books that I got. I got one mass market paperback. I am not going to impulsively buy dollar mass market paperbacks with the frequency that I used to. They aren't very readable. I love them. As a form, I think they are perfect. A perfect piece of technology. But they're not very readable. And the paper tends to flake off. And if I have the book as an ebook, which is very readable and does not flake off or age, anyway, I got one mass market paperback, and I got it because it's a Louis L'Amour, and it's a classic thing. It's The Man Called Noon, with just a classic mesa in the background cover there. What have we got here? I don't know that I've ever read this. There was gold buried somewhere on the Davidge spread. No one knew where for sure, but a whole lot of people were ready to kill for it. Peg Cullen was as cold as a Texas blizzard. She wanted the gold, and she didn't care what her hired guns had to do to get it. Judge Nyland was a greedy double dealer. He had plenty of money. He knew how to get it and how to keep it, but he wanted more. All Fan Davidge wanted was her ranch back, and Rubel Noon vowed she'd have it, the ranch and the gold, or he'd die trying. That sounds like such a perfect Louis L'Amour thing that I want to read this thing tonight, even though it's not June on the Range. Will I? I don't know. I will. Last year, I bought a bunch of mass market westerns, and I threw them on a pile, and a lot of them I didn't read during June on the Range. And Louis L'Amour, surely, if any author can get on his horse and ride out of the confines of June on the Range, it's Louis L'Amour. Surely that is the case. So I may put this on the pile for tonight. Then we have a little thing. This is from, I think, 1904, 1905. Little hardcover that I got. 1904. This is, you're not going to be able to see much because it doesn't have a dust jacket. I was tempted by a lot of things today that did not have dust jackets. I left most of them behind. This is by Thomas Parrott, and it is Studies of a Book Lover. And there is a picture here at the front, but it's Matthew Arnold. it's not Thomas Parrott, who in his youth was mighty nice to look at. Thomas Parrott was. He became distinguished instead of handsome. And this is him writing about various literary subjects, which he did periodically throughout a busy career as a teacher. So what have we got here? The poetry of Matthew Arnold, so that's why it starts off that way. Then Old Edinburgh and her Poet Laureate. And that's long. That's 40 pages long. I don't know off the top of my head who that will be. Is that Robert Burns? I don't know, and I'm not sure that a glance at the piece will tell me. I'm hoping that it's full of a lot of atmosphere about Old Edinburgh. That's always fun to read. Then let's see here: the autobiography of Milton, the personality of Dr. Johnson, a little bit about Thomas Gray, a little bit about Goldsmith, something called The Last Minstrel. I have no idea who that is. And then the final essay is The Vitality of Browning. I love these kinds of things. I just love them. They're not the latest scholarship. They're never annotated, but I love them. I love reading them. I have a ton of them. On one whole bookcase on a wall, I have a ton of them. And I don't have this one. I don't think I've ever read this guy. So, okay, then this next one was prompted by the raucous Steve stream last night that we did. I did a Steve stream. I said this will be brief. It went on forever. And during the course of that Steve stream, we range all over the map in a live stream. I read every comment and comment on every comment. So whatever. I always have throat-clearing thoughts, but we range all over the map. And somebody last night, in last night's Steve stream, said that there were like 130 people there, which ought not to be true for a channel my size. But at one point, somebody in the Steve stream asked, what's your favorite submarine fiction? And I blustered and said, I thought about Das Boot and a bunch of other things. And there was a book that was sort of nagging at my mind, and it didn't come to my mind last night. When I should have been able to rattle off a whole bunch of books, it didn't come to my mind. And then I was browsing the Brattle sale lot, and I saw an old copy, an original copy, I believe, with a dust jacket. Ice Station Zebra by Alistair MacLean. There is our author as a young man, a tousled-haired young man. And this is not a long novel. I am definitely going to read this weekend. This is a great submarine novel, and I don't know why it didn't come straight to my mind when I was see, you've even got the outline of the submarine there. I don't know, when did this come out? Is this really an original edition? I don't care about such things, but yeah, 1963. I'm going to put a wrapper, a library covering on this, and I'm going to reread it, because I feel like I owe penance to my Steve stream for not rattling off a dozen submarine novels. So I found Ice Station Zebra, which was, for a long time, one of the most famous ones. So I will add that to the pile. Then we have Lacey Baldwin Smith. I had a mass market copy of this once upon a time. There's another thing on this pile that I had a mass market copy of. We'll get to that. The find of the day, really. I had a mass market copy of this. I read it and didn't think much of it. I thought there was some good turns of phrase. But I am totally up for re-examining this. It's Lacey Baldwin Smith's biography of Henry VIII. The Mask of Royalty. I remember at one point in this novel, not novel, at one point in this biography, Lacey Baldwin Smith says that Henry VIII, that a young Henry VIII, a scholarly Henry VIII, quickly understood the arguments of humanism, but not its essence. And I love that. That is absolutely true. Henry VIII read all the humanists and doted on their latest publications, but he was not a humanist himself. He was a monster. So I like that line. There were a couple of other lines. There were a couple of lines associated with Catherine of Aragon that I really liked, and they stuck in my mind. That mass market paperback is long since gone. But I noticed the other day that I am building out a good collection of Henry VIII biographies. I'm perfectly willing to read this again. I'll put a covering on this and read this again, another Henry VIII biography. Okay, then this next one I love. I don't think that I have a copy except as an ebook. This is Douglas Brinkley put together a gigantic collection of Ronald Reagan's diaries, and I got this originally from the publisher. When? 2007? 2007. I got this an advanced copy of this from the publisher. Open Letters Monthly had just started. In 2007, we were starting to gain traction as a literary journal, starting to get people to notice us. And I wrote a long review of this. I read this thinking, oh, this is going to be just airbrush nonsense. This is going to be lawyer-vetted banalities. And instead, it was the real man, served up on the page after page after page. So I wrote a review of this, a long review called President Peeps. And if I remember, I will leave a link to that review down below. I found this to be utterly fascinating. The real man, who in a real diary, in a real journal, you are writing for future you and no one else. So you can write embarrassing things. You can make yourself look bad. Pepys does it all the time and doesn't even seem to realize it. I don't think Reagan did either. He looks good in some of these entries, thoroughly human in some of these entries, but also bad, sometimes petty, vindictive toward his family, whatnot. I loved it. Just loved it. Now, but that's not the reason that I got it, because I have an e-copy of this. The reason that I got it is because a couple of visits ago, David Murphy got a ton of books. Of course, we went book shopping all over the place. And we filled a gigantic medium mail cardboard box at the post office with, I don't even know, probably 30 of those books. It was heavy to lift. I didn't lift it, of course he did. He's got the muscles, so he lifted it. He was a beast of burden the whole time. But one of the books in that pile, I don't remember most of them. Of course, we didn't take pictures or make an inventory. There's a video, a book haul video, so we could reconstitute what was lost in that box. But one of those books was the Reagan Diaries, for him. And that box went missing. Heartbreaking. It went missing. And the best efforts of postal people in 2 different post offices could not locate it. It was not lost. Someone saw it at a post office sorting depot, but no one can lay their hands on it. Even now, as far as I know, it's not recovered. So it's well and truly gone. We all have heartbreaks like that in our past. I certainly do. And I didn't, off the top of my head, remember anything that was in this box other than this. So I got this largely for David. We'll see. If he hasn't already got a copy at Majors & Quinn, then he has a copy waiting for him the next time he comes here, unless I mail it to him. Then this next one is a recent book. This is a perfect example of the Brattle giving me a second chance at something. This is 2019. I read this and liked it. I don't know that I reviewed it. I don't think I did. This is Daisy Dunn, and this is her book Shadows of Vesuvius, A Life of Pliny. I think the subtitle here is very intentionally being a little ambiguous as to which Pliny, because the book touches on both. I really liked the book, and I didn't keep it. For some odd reason, I didn't keep it. So I saw a copy today at the shop. I immediately wondered if it was mine, but it has, somebody included all of these reviews and magazine articles, and they definitely weren't me. I definitely didn't do that. They also added one of those little plastic tabs, and I definitely don't do that either. So this is somebody else's copy. Obviously a book reviewer's copy, I would think. Or a thoroughly bookish person. Thoroughly bookish people tend to be the ones that clip reviews and put them in books. I don't know any casual reader that does that. So I have this again. I can read it again. But the first thing I'm going to do is not reread the book. It's reread all of these pieces that the person saved. This is from what? What are you from? The Wall Street Journal. Then there's the New Yorker. And then this looks like the TLS. Yeah, this is the TLS. So that's great. Fantastic. I don't think there are any more. No, it's just those 3. And it definitely isn't me, because I don't have a print subscription to the Wall Street Journal. So I got this. That's fantastic. Both Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger had fascinating lives. Okay, then we have the find of the day. Unfortunately not complete, so once again I am looking for a book. Because this is a 2-volume set. At least it's not 15 volumes. This is by Winston Churchill. And here we have, I would say, the return of the tabby cat, but it's not the same kind of tabs. This is someone else doing this to a book. I'm going to have to remove all of those, one by one. But it isn't marked up in any other way, and this is The River War, Volume 1. But this isn't just that. This, I want to show you, oh, look at that. What a mensch. You don't even put your name on the front. Good for you. This was edited by James Muller, Muller, in when? When did you do this? 2020. For a university press? Is that right? Or a smaller press of some kind? Because I was never even offered this. Yeah, St. Augustine's Press. Muller did a fully annotated, gorgeously, critically curated new edition of The River War by Winston Churchill. This was Churchill's second book. It was the second book he ever published. He was like in his early 20s. And he had, in part, participated in the events that he describes. Not really in the first volume. The first volume is the setup to the revolt in Sudan. The revolt against British imperial power in the Sudan, which was a shooting war that went on for 10 years. It was a long, bloody struggle. The forces of Imperial Britain against the Mahdi. What's that, you sci-fi fantasy people say? You mean Paul Atreides? No, I know that Paul Atreides in Dune is called the Mahdi, but there was actually a real example of that makes for every bit as good a reading as Dune does. This is Churchill's story of that. Volume 1 is largely the enormous background of that story, of the British in Egypt and whatnot, the British in the Sudan. And then Volume 2 is how Winston Churchill himself saved the day and won the war alone, without Kitchener, without anybody else. And I have never read this. There was a one-volume mass-market paperback abridgment of the River War. Actually, there was a one-volume abridgment that Churchill himself did, because the original was 1,000 pages. It was two 500-page books. I have no idea what a first edition of the River War in 2 volumes would be. I have no idea how expensive that would be. But Churchill realized right away. He was always canny about this. He went to the Sudan not as a warrior. Good luck getting a 50-year-old Winston Churchill to say that he was there as anything other than not only a warrior, but the greatest warrior of them all. But he went there as a newspaper correspondent. Not even a correspondent, because the paper that he went for had correspondents already on the ground. He went just to write articles for the newspaper. He was well paid to do it. But he was a great observer, and he was, let's face it, I hate to, part of me still bugs to say it, but a great prose stylist. I'm slowly trying to accumulate his multi-volume history of the Second World War so that I can just read it from front to back. It never occurred to me that I would be reading other Churchill, but Muller had the inspired idea of taking that original 2-volume set of the River War and critically annotating it, coming out with great annotated editions of Volume 1 and Volume 2. And I have never read them. I've never read the unabridged version of this book. So when I saw Volume 1 at the shop today, I grabbed it. And that sets me up right away for Samuel Eliot Morison all over again, because God knows when I'll see Volume 2 of this. Or if I were to go online and look for it, how expensive it is. God knows how expensive it is. I will look, just in case it's reasonable, so that I don't wait forever to get Volume 2 of this. I know that I'm going to want to read Volume 2 when I get rid of Volume 1. First, I'm going to have to take care of this thing. I'm going to have to take all this Tabby Cat stuff out of here and figure out what there's all sorts of editorial ephemera that's stuck in here all through the book. And I'm going to need to go through and see what of that I want to keep and what of that it is. Straighten this out. Of course, this is a little ragged, so I'll put a library covering over this. But how wonderful to find this. For all I know, I haven't checked. For all I know, Volume 1 of The River War by Winston Churchill in the Muller edition is expensive online. I've had that happen. For all I know, this would be expensive to get Volume 2. We will see. But I certainly don't want to go back to an abridgment. So this is Winston Churchill single-handedly, personally fighting Britain's imperialist wars of conquest. Then we have comic books. We have a DC comic collection. I don't know if I've ever encountered this before, but I grabbed it as soon as I saw it. This is called Superman Dark Knight over Metropolis. And I grabbed it because of this cover. Because there was a Superman comic book, an annual I think it was, where Superman and Batman confront a vampire outbreak in small-town America. And it is drawn by Art Adams, who is a very slow and meticulous, gorgeous artist. He doesn't do regular comic book artwork because of how slow and careful he is. So I have this issue with this cover. It wasn't colored like this, but I have this issue that I've just kept for all of these years. Will this even tell me? Let's see. 1980s. Well, probably, yeah, the 1980s. Action Comics Annual number 1. Yeah, 1980s. 1987. I have that issue that I've just been holding on to because I didn't know it was ever reprinted anywhere. And it's beautiful. It's really good. And now I don't have to worry about it because I have it in this. And this has other Superman and Batman team-ups from the inauthentic era. Let's just put it that way. From the inauthentic era. From an era when we weren't really sure. Superman and Batman are best friends. They're trusted colleagues and best friends. They were that way for 60 years of continuity. Then all of a sudden, Superman was changed and the DC continuity was changed. You're not allowed to change Batman. Don't mess with the money. But Superman was changed, and all of a sudden it was this business of Man of Steel number 4, where Superman and Batman are not friends. where they don't know each other's secret identity, where they don't trust each other. And so you're stuck when you do Superman and Batman stories in here. You're stuck wondering who they are to each other. What do they trust each other? And I watched a lot of those stories because even in that revamped continuity, I was telling myself, sooner or later you're going to go back to the way things were. You just are. Sooner or later you're going to go back to the way things were. You can't have two of DC's trinity of heroes not liking or trusting each other. That won't work. That's Marvel that you're thinking of. So every time Batman appeared in a Superman comic book in this new era, I would snap it up and see, okay, are you going to make them any warmer towards each other? Are you going to make them any better trusting to each other, respecting of each other? So some of the issues in here, I mean, the first one, the Art Adams thing, I've reread many times. But some of them in here, I'm sure I've only read once. So great to have that. And then the final thing, this was also a kind of a find of the day. I've never seen anything like this. I did not know that it existed. I'm not even 100% sure that this was ever actually commercially for sale. I wonder if I can tell. Oh, okay, all right. You had your own company print it. Okay, from 1910. This is a cartoon history of Roosevelt's career, and the Roosevelt here is Theodore Roosevelt. And this is okay, all sorts of ephemera falling out. This is by Albert Shaw, and it is put out by the Review of Reviews company, which was the Review of Reviews he was the editor of the American version of Review of Reviews for a long time. So he just printed it himself. Okay, so this might not ever have been in bookstores. And that's what it is. Theodore Roosevelt was, even before he was president, but certainly when he was president, he was a cartoonist dream. He looked odd. He was thoroughly energetic. He lent himself to caricature. He was always doing something. So cartoonists loved him. They just loved him. And so they portrayed him endlessly, an endless stream of cartoons. And that's what this book is. This book shows his career. There are photographs, but it shows his career in all of these cartoons. That is just incredible. I had no idea that something like this even existed. I wonder if this has the quintessential acknowledgement of how congenial Roosevelt was to cartoonists was actually captured in a cartoon. Because Theodore Roosevelt said, intemperately, he said that he would not seek another term. He came into office when his president was assassinated, and then he was elected, and he said he would not seek another term, that instead he would sail off to Africa and go on safari and whatnot. And there was a cartoon, I forget where it originally appeared, it might have been in the Saturday Evening Post, that showed all of America's political cartoonists sitting on the dock, bawling their eyes out as Theodore Roosevelt's ship sails away because they won't have him to draw anymore. And that would be a great thing to include in here, but I don't know if they will. I'd have to hunt through this to find it, because of course he comes back and stands for president after that cartoon. So no, I'm hoping that it's in here, but I would have to dig around to find it. But I am so happy to find this thing. That is incredible. So there you go. That was a Brattle haul. It wasn't the whole Brattle haul. I'm not showing you the special surprise. But we have, let's see here. We'll do a Steve Pyramid. We have our cartoon history of Theodore Roosevelt's career. Incredible. We have Dark Knight over Metropolis. Modern adventures of Superman and Batman. But it has Skeeter. It has Art Adams, that annual. So I don't have to hoard that thing anymore and protect it from vagabonds. Then we have, perhaps the find of the day, The River War in the Muller edition, Volume 1. Thoroughly annotated, but this is the way Churchill originally did this. Did it in 2 enormous volumes. It's going to be so much fun to read an unabridged version of this thing. I just need to figure out what I'm going to do about Volume 1. We have Shadow of Vesuvius by Daisy Dunn, A Life of Pliny. Both Plinies, the elder and the younger, get a lot of space time in here. We have the Reagan Diaries, which will either go on David Murphy's much-neglected to-mail pile, or it will go in my collection if he already has it. There's Henry VIII by Lacey Baldwin Smith, another biography of Henry. Very tempted to get to that right away. I'm tempted by a lot of these things. Ice Station Zebra, a Guilt By from a Steve Stream, a Submarine novel. We have Studies of a Book Lover by T.M. Parrott. just meditations on various literary subjects. And finally, The Man Called Noon by Louis L'Amour. A Louis L'Amour adventure. They are all great, so you can't go wrong. Fantastic. So there you go. I went to the Brattle. I naively thought that perhaps I would not buy anything. And I quickly changed my tune. so some things from this pile are going on the reading for tonight. But anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.